From Bosstrack, it's Her HypeSquad, a show about amazing women who've made incredible strides as leaders in their industry. They're here to support you in your leadership growth, to encourage you and hype you up as part of your Hype Squad. Welcome back to a new episode of Her HypeSquad with Bosstrack. I'm your host, Michelle Harris. This week, I talk with Kristine Middlemiss about leading in tech, balancing drive and passion, clear communication, and driving solutions. Kristine has so much great advice to share from her leadership experiences, but before we get into our conversation, let me tell you a little bit about Kristine. With more than 20 years of experience, Kristine Middlemiss is a world-class leader in innovation and software development, having worked in a global leading software company, top-grossing video game company, premier film studio, and a fast-growing VFX studio. Kristine has a focus on Python and C++ software development, end-to-end motion capture, animation, VFX pipelines, emerging technologies including AR/VR, cloud and machine learning, and support plus client management. She has proven results in cutting-edge technical leadership strategies, educational training techniques, business communications, and customer service. In her most recent role, Kristine was a proactive and creative problem solver leading the technology division and company's technology strategy at Monsters, Aliens, Robots, Zombies as a chief technology officer, pushing cloud, IT, AI, rendering, and the VFX pipeline forward for the studio. Kristine has an honors Bachelor of Computing degree with a major in computer science and a minor in fine art from the University of Guelph in Canada. Kristine has previously worked in such leadership roles as software developer, developer consultant, technical director, and pipeline supervisor at such companies as IBM, Lenovo, Alias, Autodesk, and Rockstar Games. Prior to her latest role, she was in the LA area where she was working as a lead motion capture and advanced technology engineer at DreamWorks Animation, where she received Technical Achievement Awards for Performance Animation Pipeline in 2015, AR/VR Production Asset Transfer Pipeline in 2017, and Mocap to Layout Data Delivery Pipeline in 2018. Kristine has worked on such projects as Grand Theft Auto 5, Home, Kung Fu Panda 3, Trolls, Abominable, The Walking Dead, WandaVision, Stranger Things, Wednesday, to name a few. Kristine currently resides in Ontario, Canada with her husband and 3 children. She enjoys spending time with her family, bookbinding, and reading. Be sure to subscribe to our channel and help more people find us by sharing this episode with others or by leaving a review, or subscribe to our weekly newsletter filled with things we found that we're excited about and were inspired by, along with valuable leadership advice to watch, listen to, or read. It's a little bit of joy for your inbox each Monday. You can subscribe at thebosstrack.com/weeklyjoy. Now, without further delay, let's get into my conversation with Kristine Middlemiss. Hi, Kristine. Thank you so much for joining us on the Her HypeSquad with Bosstrack podcast. I'm so excited to get into our conversation today.
Great. Thank you for having me. I'm excited as well.
Yeah, I know it's been a little while since we've talked, so I'm really excited to kind of hear what your thoughts are on some of these things that we had talked about before. I would really like if you could start out by introducing yourself. We provided a more formal bio up front, but if you could just provide a few words about yourself to the audience so they can hear directly from you.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, well, I mean, just to sort of summarize, I've been in the media and entertainment industry for 20 years. I spent time in software, animation, games, machine learning, VFX. So I feel like I've sort of touched all the different components of that industry. I started off as a software developer and I've progressed into leadership. I'm really passionate about growing teams and mentoring, aligning teams, innovation, just kind of really a lot of soft skills, but a lot of technical skills as well. I want to see more people, more women in technology. And I know we'll probably touch on that later more. And, I have a huge passion for art and television and film. It's funny when I think back to my high school years and I was always watching TV and doing homework, which is just at being a parent now is like, oh my God, I couldn't do that, right? But that's what I did and I made it through. So anyways, that's where my passion started.
Well, great. Yeah. And I'm excited to talk about women in tech. We have a lot of people in our audience that are in the tech industry. And I know there are some challenges that, cross industries, but I know in the tech industry itself, especially when it's an emerging company, I know there's just a lot more stress and challenges for women in those environments. So I'm looking forward to kind of hearing your perspective on some of the things that I've talked to other guests about. You mentioned your passions. So how do you balance your passions and your drive?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question because they sort of complement each other. But, some days you're going to have a whole bunch of passion, and other days you're going to have a whole bunch of drive. And I think the key is just sort of rolling with it. I think one of the key things for people is finding a career that you are passionate about and want to make change and want to make and make a difference. I think that sort of helps with the balance for sure.
Hmm. And how do you think about passion? Like what are passions to you versus like what is drive?
So passion to me would be, that's a good question. Let me think about this. So, just what I want to do all the time. That includes joy, but then at the same time, I would say maybe my drive is one of my passions too. So that's where it gets a little bit, convoluted. But I like to push hard, um, just kind of do the best you can do, use your time effectively, all those things. I'm helping coach my son's baseball team, and I realize I'm competitive. And so I think maybe that's a little bit also where your drive comes from. And you don't have to be competitive to have drive, but I think it can help a little bit. So
I know you have a newborn or a really
yeah. So
young one.
he is 10 months. Yeah. So I have a
Okay.
6-year old, a 4-year old, and a 10-month old.
Oh my. Okay.
Yeah,
Keep you busy.
it does for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know a lot of women that are coaching their sons' baseball teams.
It's funny. Okay, so last year I wasn't. I was like, oh, he was young, right? And I was not as happy. And I thought, if I'm not going to be as happy with the coaching, because there were just so many kids and I didn't feel like he was learning or other kids were learning, I thought, well, I better be part of the solution
Mm.
than just complaining about it. So this year I decided that I was going to help coach. So
Oh.
yeah, but it gets better as they're getting older anyways. But yeah, so I guess, I apply that actually to career, right? If you're going to complain about it, you have to have a solution, or you have to, be part of fixing it.
Yeah, I was thinking exactly that when you said that. I was like, oh, that can so easily apply to being in business as
Yeah,
well. Very good
exactly.
lesson.
Yeah, exactly.
And you shared a little bit about this, but can you kind of go into detail about your journey going from an individual contributor to being a leader and your experiences along the way that helped you shape your leadership style?
Yeah. I think my journey, to sort of summarize it, is, and I almost feel uncomfortable saying this, but is bravery. And just saying yes to the scary things throughout my career, the things that make you like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. And just always kind of doing the things that scare the shit out of you. I think back to when I was earlier on in my career, I did a lot of training and a lot of traveling, and I was training mostly men and generally older men, and it was like 2 or 3 day trainings, and some of them were just so, you're getting on this plane and it's scary, right? Or the time that we decided just to move to another country, and just you just sometimes you just got to close your eyes and go with it. And so I think that sort of shaped my journey for sure. I think another part was just having leaders throughout my career that either didn't trust me or didn't have a heart, maybe for good or bad. So those type of things have really shaped my journey. one of the examples was I was an acting lead at a job, and I thought it was no more. I didn't get it officially. It was no more pay,
Yeah.
and I thought, you know what? I'm never doing that to someone. If they're good enough to have the thing, just have it, right? So that was a huge shaper for me, and just things around. I mean, I'm sure we've all had those maybe bosses that have said, "Oh yeah, yeah, we'll give you an increase." You're like waiting, you're waiting, you're waiting, and it's a year later, and you're like, what is happening? And I never want to be that boss. Like, if we have the discussion and we decide, then let's do it. Let's do it right away. Everyone's happier. So just a lot. A lot of those type of things have shaped my career and my journey, and have helped me jump from being a developer into leadership.
Hmm. That's so interesting. I think a lot of us can relate to learning from our leadership on what not to do.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
So hopefully we'll help change the narrative and shape leaders that have heart and lead with heart and have a coaching leadership style. I think that's really what we all need. And I think there's so much benefit to that. If you think back to the time where you were given the acting lead position, did you address that at all? Or can you think of like ways that you would have gone back and addressed it, like for people that kind of might be in that situation where they've got a lot of added responsibility and don't necessarily know how to address that?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I definitely, in my gut, say for sure take it. I mean, you don't want to say no, because it's giving you, if anything, it's just building your resume and your skill set,
Mhm.
and doing things that you want. I mean, I'm assuming you would want the leadership if you're being offered the acting. I think sort of my advice is do it, but don't get taken advantage of too long, and have those conversations with them. Try and set timelines. And, if you have to sort of decide where you're comfortable and sort of saying, like, I'm going to pull the plug. And I don't mean don't take it there, but maybe jump ship to that role that you're in, because you've been doing it. So you might as well get the pay and the actual position. And
Mhm.
sometimes when you're acting, it's tough to always get the respect around it, because everybody else knows you're acting, you
Yeah.
know? So I think that's sort of the key, but everyone's sort of threshold of what they can deal with. You just have to make a decision and decide.
We talked a little bit before about authenticity, like being your authentic self and leading. How would you say that you've balanced out needing to be in a leadership role with authority, but then also being true to who you feel you are?
Yeah, this this one's definitely something I think a lot about, because one of the challenges is I think I'm maybe too nice. That's I'm more easygoing, and so you sometimes end up keeping the employees that are maybe just okay.
Mm,
And so, in technical jobs, there can be a really wide gap between execution of just maybe average coders to the rock star coders. And so you have to make peace with finding those rock stars and moving on. I actually just read the Netflix book by Reed Hastings, which is
mm,
No Rules Rules. And it's so interesting because it's very different than how we lead, and they're very cutthroat about, well, at least they say they are in the book, that about mediocre kind of employees. And I think that looking back on my career, there's times where maybe we could have been going faster in a different direction and saving the company money based on just making those tough decisions, you know
yeah. That's so interesting because I can understand where in a technical role you really need to be really on your A plus game.
yeah.
And whereas in other roles, I think you can maybe do a little less and get by. So from a leadership perspective, I imagine that is a challenge very specific to the tech industry. Like, have you learned how to manage that? Is have you learned how to have those direct conversations? Like, what has been your experience from that?
Yeah, I think it's always a work in progress, but I'm definitely learning to manage those better and to just take, the sort of you have to push the business forward. And so I think I am getting better at having those discussions and also working with you. It's about working with people and trying to mentor them, and maybe sometimes it's just a lack of alignment on, maybe I'm not communicating well enough on what's the expectations. So I think it's a partnership and just sort of working with the employees and growing them, and sometimes maybe they're maybe not in the right position at the company. Maybe they need to be in a different position where they'll be more successful. So it's not just about moving on or anything like that. It's yeah, so it's a work in progress ever always, but I think I'm sort of getting there with that, trying to be my authentic self, but also being, direct and assertive about those things.
Yeah, I mean, that was always hard for me too. And actually, I just talked to a guest about the book Radical Candor by Kim Scott. And,
Okay, yeah.
we talked about being in that ruinous empathy quadrant where you just want to be nice, but it's not good for your team and your employees or, the company, but thinking people centric, it's not good for your people either. And we talked a little bit about that. And it's so important as leaders for us to remember that we can be honest in a kind way. And that kind of brings me to Brene Brown, where, and I'm let me think about, it's an easy one. It's kind, unkind is clear. Oh, no. Clear is kind, unclear is unkind. So it was kind
Yeah.
of pointing to that you really need to be transparent in how people are doing and communicate with them, and not necessarily just like say you're doing this, it's wrong, like you're not doing
Yeah.
your job, but being there to say this is what's going on, this is what we need, and how can we help you get there, and you can have those conversations in a positive way. It sounds like you're kind of saying that as well.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's the second time I've heard her name in 2 days. That's funny. Yeah, when things like that, Brene Brown. But yeah, that's right on. That's exactly how we have to work it. And yeah, I mean, I think we're always learning, right? It's
Yeah.
always like reflecting and learning. And
Yeah. Well, it's always guaranteed that Brene Brown will come up on
yeah, 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 yeah.
on our podcast in some way. So
That's
that's our Brene Brown moment.
yeah.
What are some of the challenges that you see women in particular face in the tech industry?
I think, you know, I gaslighting, undermining, sometimes just bad culture of the company. One of the things that I think to kind of overcome some of those is to sort of don't wait for the culture to change. You need to kind of find your people.
Mhm.
I think you might be waiting a long time if you're finding that. If it's one or two, then maybe. But if it's a general culture thing, I think maybe it's just not a good fit. And there are companies out there like that. And so, you know, just there's something Tina Fey always say. I read her book, and she always says over, under, through.
Hmm.
And I really like that. And it's like that's where someone's making you stick, you're stuck, right? And so it's like over, under, through. And if that's the next company because you can't get anywhere or you don't like it, like just keep moving.
Yeah.
Don't wait it out.
What does
Because
that, can you explain over under through for people that
yeah,
are
yeah. So basically the concept is like if you're struggling with somebody or somebody's undermining you, go over them, go under them, go through them. Don't let that one person derail your life, your career. Just keep working around them. There's a way, and that one person or shouldn't affect what your trajectory is and your
Mhm.
path and your career and your passions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you brought up gaslighting. Is there something you would recommend for people, like how to handle that when it's happening or to address it?
Um, I mean, it depends. It depends, I guess, if you're the wittiest person. Like some people are so good at thinking on their feet right
Mm.
there, right? And it's not an emotional, it's just very like putting them in their place. And others, me for example, that's not my strong suit. Is I come back and I think about it. And so I've sort of learned to just let it go in the moments, because there's no point in, it's generally in an audience, you're generally in a meeting or you're leading. So I just let it go, and then I'll either address it with the person after, or, you know, just, yeah, or sometimes you don't have to work with them again. Maybe it's someone once it was a one-off thing and you don't really work with them, and so you just let it go. That's sort of my strategy for that. Just don't let them affect you. If it becomes a problem, then you need to address it, and you need to talk with them and figure out where it came from, and what's the real, pick up the phone always.
Mm-hmm.
That's super
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah. What qualities or skills would you say were important to you as you moved into your leadership position? What are some of the qualities and skills that you think are important?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think having I think leadership in is pretty much the same, I would say, for most industries, but definitely soft skills, communication, honesty, empathy, decisiveness is really key. Tech suffers from a lot of bloat, so really understanding what resources it takes to get a job done is really key. So you don't have to have a technology background to be a leadership in tech, but it sure helps.
Yeah.
And I think if you are the some of the people that don't have a tech background, you just have to have heavier finance, leadership, whatever the skills are to sort of compensate, because for there's a lot of alphas out there, and so they definitely, and a lot of the conversation circulates around technology, right? And so if you're not able to sit and chat about what tech is, it can make it challenging. I don't
Mm.
want to discourage people from joining tech if they don't have a tech background, because you can absolutely learn it, but depending on the role, it can make it a little bit harder. I think the biggest skill probably is to come with your data, really know your data. And because everyone will get challenged. I don't necessarily think it's just a woman thing, but you can be challenged on, what do you know it? Do you not know it? So just having the data, being sharp, you know?
Yeah. You mentioned bloat. I like this is not part of our I guess this is getting a little off of discussion, but
Oh,
I'm curious that is it prevalent from what you've seen where companies will hire in very strong people for positions even if they don't have a role for them and people might sit around for a while and not do anything. I've been, like that's been in the news lately where companies like hoard talent and they hire
yeah,
them and pay them large salaries, but then they're just like bored and they're not doing anything. I was curious if you've
yeah.
seen that.
In the VFX industry, it is so hard to hire. It's so competitive. And so there can be times, I generally find it's not as common with tech, but from the artist side, it absolutely, you don't want to. So sometimes they might not have a project and they could be sitting on the bench or in gap, and usually they should be picking up projects. But yeah, it is common because it takes so long to hire and it's so competitive. Tech,
Mhm.
I mean, honestly, tech, I feel like there's always something to
Mhm.
do. You should never be sitting idle, because I mean, you could be commenting code, like whatever. There's always something to be done there. But it's easy to get people that are doing busy work. You know what I mean? You can sort of get a bigger team, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, they're not really executing, and they're sort of, and so that's sort of what I mean by bloat, is just kind of making sure that they're not just passing the time and making it look like they're working, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
effective for the business?
Yeah. So have you led in a remote environment?
Say that one more time. I didn't.
Have you led in a
Oh
remote
yeah, that was,
environment?
so my role is completely remote. And so three years. I actually moved right before COVID, and that was one of my stipulations kind of before COVID even hit. And it was actually, that's an interesting sort of tidbit too, is I would just say, hey, is this remote? And they'd be like, just give me a second, let me check with the team. And they'd come back and they'd say, yeah, we can do that. And that was even before COVID,
Mm.
And so that, I think, just push for what you want, ask for what you want. The worst that anyone will ever say is no.
Yeah.
Yes, we're Zoom and Google Meets and all those good things.
Yeah, it just kind of brought to mind when you are talking about like making sure people aren't doing just busy work. Do you have any tips for leading remotely and balancing check-ins with feeling like you're micromanaging everybody? Like, how did you
Yeah,
handle that?
I mean, I tend to mostly use Slack-like communications, so that's super helpful. It's sort of a little bit though productivity killer a little at the same time, just because
Mhm.
it's very social media like addicted to it. So that's one way for sure to check in. And the other is a lot of the software teams were doing agile software development, so they have their story points for how long a task will take, and so it's self-managed. A scrum master will manage it, and so you don't really need to micromanage. You kind of the data tells itself at the end. And I think like some of the other teams that were maybe not coding, we would just set up goals for the week and they knew what they had to execute and they knew where to find me, and just sort of go that way. Yeah, I think I'm not sure. I would see even earlier in my career, I always had bosses that were like overseas. And so it sort of felt like it was remote anyways.
Mhm.
So I haven't struggled with the transition to it.
Mhm.
And I think that most people are getting their work done.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and I'm pretty much, I don't, like, don't tell me when you have dentist appointments. Don't tell me when you have doctor's appointments. Just put it in your calendar, go.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I like it. I mean, you're working remote as well, right? And
Mhm.
so I mean, you're enjoying sort of the flexibility of it. And
Yeah. Oh, yes, definitely. And it was a little bit of a transition for me because before I started the company, I was working at a company where I was there in the office every day and seeing people. So for sure, there was a bit of a transition moving to the and that environment. And I know I talked to a lot of people who still really aren't settled in that remote leadership. I think maybe even that's why you're seeing a lot of like people saying you have to come back to the office because they never really got comfortable with feeling that they knew their team was productive and didn't have those I guess barriers in place, like, talking about what you're going to do for the week or just having trust in your team that this work needs to get done, they get it done, and everything it's the same as being. It's funny, I've talked to people about it before and they mentioned, well, you could have somebody in the office that is sitting there typing away at their computer but could be working or not even working on anything, so
yeah,
it's not really different. It's just like this security blanket for
yeah.
especially leaders that have been in the office for so long, that there's just something about like being able to physically see everybody there. So I was curious about that. Do you have check-ins, like one-on-one meetings with your team?
Yeah, absolutely. So every other week, various different companies, but we do check-ins. I felt like I spent my life on meetings. That maybe is maybe you could argue that that's maybe one of the downfalls of remote. But always, I like to have the team on camera if they can. That really helps. And check-ins and weekly meetings and kind of and with agile software development, you have a stand up every single day. That's part of the method,
Mhm.
so that you see them
Okay.
every day.
So I know you said that you have a tendency to be nice, but maybe from your experience or from what you've seen with other women, how do you look at balancing being collaborative and being assertive, but then being assertive and that feeling that or that perception that a woman is being a bitch? Like,
Yeah.
Because I've had conversations with people, particularly in the tech industry, where that's a challenge, and they have talked about, how do we get past that perception that just because I'm being assertive doesn't mean I'm being aggressive. Have you seen that?
Yes, definitely. For me, I think, to sort of make the decision, collaborate, it's kind of a cycle. So like decision, collaborate, communicate, make the decision. And not all the decisions are my decisions. Some of my decisions are just hiring my managers or my directors who can make the decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that just being assertive about those type of things, being in technology and the leadership, it's not for me. I'm not an expert in every area, right? And the ones that are strategy and business focus might fall to me more. But then once I communicate and give the team context, then they need to make the decisions within the guidelines that I provide, but they have the autonomy to make those decisions. That's why I hired them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I mean, all different organizations run differently. Like some organizations, the buck stops at the top, right? They make that decision on everything, but that's not very collaborative at all. And I can't envision, people being engaged and feeling proud of their work and just all those inclusive alignment, right? So that's kind of how I've done it, is that cycle, and I don't need to be involved in every decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And in terms of that line between being perceived as aggressive when you're just trying to get a point across and you're being assertive, like, how would you, is there anything that you could recommend to people, like, to kind of understand how you're being perceived or how to deal with somebody if they're looking at you as being overly assertive or aggressive?
Um, I mean, definitely communicate. I want them to come and communicate with me. It's one of the interesting things I've seen in my career is if you build the team yourself, they're less likely to think you're assertive. If you take on a team that's not yours, then you're more assertive. But I think that comes where they either wanted the job or there's a power struggle or something.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can build your team, right? Because they're going to be, you generally email you interview them, they are bought into your mission and goals, and so then they expect you to be in charge and assertive and maybe even sometimes a little aggressive, right? So I think that's the challenge. Now if you're sort of taking over a team, you have to, sometimes it's not always a fit too, right? If you can't get past it and you're the leader, maybe that person maybe it's not right for them, maybe they don't, and
Yeah.
they need to move on, and you figure that out. But always communicate and get to the bottom. Maybe they are mad about
Yeah.
something, or I mean, lots of personal problems too. Sometimes you never know what's going on at home, and just
Yeah.
having those conversations.
Yeah, that's true. Communication is so important. You brought up a really good perspective of that whole difference between when you get to build your own team and your ability to build trust with that team versus coming into a team that already exists and having to, like, just overcome perceptions and the way things were done before. And,
Yeah,
it's building trust is like this whole different animal.
exactly. Yeah, it's that's a challenge in itself.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people are lucky enough to be able to come in and build their own
No.
team unless they're just, I mean, I've had the benefit of doing that just because I came in they were in their, I wouldn't say startup phase, but their early stage, and we might have had one or two people on the team and we had to build a whole team. So I've had the benefit of that kind of team versus coming into a whole team. And it's interesting. That has never come up, and it's very different.
Yeah. And I think sometimes where it works out, if you have inherited a team, is if you stay long enough, then you have, the loyalty on your side. Plus tends to be churn, right? And so then eventually people move on and you're able to build your team slowly that way. But yeah.
Yeah.
It's something that just was like, wow, it is a big difference.
Yeah. What would you recommend to women in a leadership role for mentoring and empowering other people in the industry? Like, do you see that a lot? And what would be your recommendation?
I think just sort of sharing the challenges that you face with them, pushing them, you know, giving them time at the table, making sure as their leader that they're, if, that they're included, that they're volunteering, those type of things equally as the rest of the team is. And sometimes maybe they just need that little shove, not to see other women as competition. I think that's a very
Hmm.
dated view. Back in the day, there was only one allowed to be like in leadership, and now that's not the case. There's enough opportunities to go around, so we just really need to support each other, and always advocate for your fellow women. There's I think it's the saying that's going around on the internet, and it's kind of, you know you want to align yourself with the women that would suggest your name when you're not in the room,
Yeah.
right? And so just teaching them to do that. It's one other interesting kind of tidbit is when I've only in my career had women students contact me for internships
Mm.
and just cold call. And of them, I think I've hired almost all of them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it just random, like, hey, like I found your name. I'd love to. And we interview them, and they come and they work. And I've never had a male do that. So I think things like that, just trying to get them in front, but there's a massive problem where there isn't a lot of women in tech. There's
Yeah.
no one even they're just not there.
Yeah.
So that's a whole other can of worms. But
Yeah. I read a lot about that.
yeah.
And it's interesting. I'm on the board for the Girl Scouts, and their big push now is STEM and getting girls in programs and having camps. And so hopefully, I mean, it's just the unfortunate thing is things like that take time,
Yeah.
and that whole, so
I
it'll
was a
be,
Girl Guide.
where you,
And I just signed my daughter up for Sparks, so this will be her first year.
oh,
Should be good. I'm excited to hear the part about the STEM because I hadn't heard that.
yeah.
So it should be. I think she's really gonna like it, and I hope they do a lot of that type of work and activities.
Yeah, yeah, it was really interesting. I guess the activity for the most recent camp was they all created a stop motion animation.
Oh wow!
So yeah, and then some of these were like really young girls doing this, and they got to like at the end of the week show their animation movies, which were just 20, 30 seconds, but
Yeah,
still, it was,
that's so cool. Okay, I love
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Good, good.
So there's hope.
Yeah, that's
Um,
amazing.
how would you recommend that women in your industry, or I mean, it could cross industries, like, I guess, communicate their accomplishments and sell themselves and to be able to grow in their careers? Or do you think that's not a problem? Do you see people like women shortchanging themselves? What would be your,
No, I think it's a problem for sure. I think it's a problem across all genders for sure. I always tell employees this, you need to do the work, you need to communicate the work. If people don't know what you're working on or they don't know about it, they have no way of knowing you did it. So you need to let them know. And at the end of the day, when there's performance reviews, there's sometimes when people are like, that doesn't even sound like me. Like,
Mhm.
where did that comment come from or something? And if you reflect back on yourself, maybe there's a possibility that they didn't even know you were doing something
Mhm.
because you didn't communicate. So it's not about micromanaging or anything like that, but how do I know you're doing it and reward and recognize you for it if nobody knows you're doing it? you
Right.
know so that is a huge way to make sure you need to be communicating all the time. And then the other thing too is to make sure you're communicating your desire for advancement, your goals. I find when the squeaky wheel gets the oil sometimes, right? So if you're communicating what your career path is and what you want, then it's a seed in your manager's mind. And they, if they're a good manager, they're going to hopefully work with you and get you there, right?
Right.
So plant the seed, tell them what you want, how you want to get there, what your timeline is, communicate.
Yeah. That's such a great advice. And for leaders, I think it's so important for us to take the responsibility of making sure that we're sitting down with our team to have the growth discussion, having an individual development plan for everybody, and understand, and ask, what are your goals? Like, where do you want to be in 2 years? Where do you want to be in 5 years? Like, how can we get you there? Like, what projects do you need to be on? What experience do you need to have? What, I don't know, training do you need to have? And,
Exactly.
aligning that all up.
It's so key. That's you, right? You have it exact.
Yeah. But for people that don't have those leaders that are having those conversations, definitely it's on you to communicate and ask for what you want so you can get to where you want, to your point.
Yep.
Yeah. Within your industry, are there any resources or communities that you find are helpful or would be helpful to women to take a look at to kind of develop or further their career or become a leader?
Yeah. So, there's a really great conference actually in Florida where you are, the Grace Hopper Conference, and that runs in September. And it's a coding women's conference. And it's, I think, 3 days long. And it's great. Like everything from just software development to leadership to diversity, everything, every topic, AI, ML. It's really a great place to be. So that's a great resource. I don't know if they're if they're doing virtual. Some of the conferences are still doing virtual options. So definitely check into that. 7CTOs has a focus group on women that they run monthly. That's really, really great. And that's a great opportunity to talk with leaders. If you are a CTO or to grow your skill set there. There's women in animation, girls who code. And then I think just, look at your own company and see if there's a women in tech organization there. It may not be as focused on leadership, but it's a great place. Usually there's people from all levels on it. And if your company doesn't have one, start one.
Yeah.
Women in tech and allies, and kind of go from there. I think it's a great way to bond. It's a great way to push everybody, chit chat, it's good.
Yeah. Yeah, that kind of circles back to what you were saying, that if you see something that you don't like, be a part of the solution. If you want something to exist and it's not there, be a part of the solution. So we kind of have come
Exactly.
a little full circle. We talked a little bit about mentorship. Is there somebody that you can look back to in your career that was an important mentor to you?
This comes back to probably one of the first questions you asked me. Yes, there was, but I think that one of the things that I watched was what I didn't like. So I think that's still a mentor, but maybe in a bit of a negative context. I think for me, it never really came in the form of like an official role model. It was more in the form of observation. I didn't feel like I had that official one, but I was really watching people and taking it all in. And once I was in tune with sort of what their traits were, then I could decide what I liked and didn't like. And then, most of the time, then for that leader that did something that didn't like, then I would just do the opposite. And I would have tremendous success. So it wasn't what they said, it was how they made me feel. And so I would just tell myself, well, I'm never going to do it that way. Like that makes people feel terrible. So I don't know if that officially counts in a term of like a mentor, but that's sort of my way forward and progressing.
Yeah. No, that definitely counts. And that's my own story as well. I never really had an official mentor, but I did learn a lot from people that I knew what not to do. So
Yeah, exactly.
completely understand.
Yeah.
I'd love to switch over to a bit of a different conversation, just talk about what you do to maintain your mental health and wellness. And if I could start out by asking you, like, what do you have a daily routine, like in the morning or evening, that helps you with your overall well-being?
Yeah, yeah. You know, this one's so simple, and I didn't figure it out until probably the last like 6 or 7 years, but I shower every morning. And I know that, so like I just hop out of bed and I hop in the shower. And when I'm in there, I'm washing my face, I'm brushing my teeth, it's all done. And then I get dressed right away. And that has been so game changing for me.
Mm.
And my family's aligned with it. And it's just, it gets me out of a funk. You know, if that day is set up for a funk, and it's just, yeah, I think because when I don't do it, you may stay in your pajamas too long, or you might not. That has helped me.
Wow, that's a
Yeah,
good one.
yeah. It's simple, I know.
Yeah, no, because I understand from a physical perspective, it just is refreshing and it definitely can help you like just wake up and get you moving versus just coming out and sitting on the couch and maybe scrolling through social media and like staying in your
Yeah.
pajamas.
And I think I like meditate a little in the shower. It's not a long shower. It's probably 3 or 4 minutes, just enough to sort of get clean and I just sort of think, okay, what am I going to do? Like I take those minutes to be like, what am I doing next?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah, game changing.
I like it. So this might be something you listen to while you're in the shower, but do you have a song that you will listen to when you need a little confidence boost or a little pick me up?
Yeah, yeah. So in the car, so right now, we are listening. I Am Here by Pink. So I watched her documentary and I had never really liked her that much. And then I watched it. I don't know what streaming service it was on, and I was like, and
Hmm.
so then I bought the CD, but then I realized, ooh, I bought the explicit version.
Oh
And so then I
no.
went and bought the radio version for my kids, and we just like jam out on
Ah,
that song. So that's our pump me up kind of one.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
honestly, I don't think I've heard that song yet, so I'll have to go out and find it and take a listen.
yeah.
So it's an older CD.
I think so.
Yeah. So did you watch the documentary? Was it good?
It was really good.
Okay.
I was she's incredible. So much so that I was like, I think I want to see her in concert. And so my husband bought me for my birthday Pink tickets. So
Oh,
we are going in the summer in Toronto.
oh,
So
nice. I think it's a great performance because she does, it probably came up in the documentary, but she does like a lot of stunts and acrobatics
yeah, I
and
didn't
yeah.
know. No clue. So I'm so excited to see it. Yeah, and I want to get more of her CDs because I think they're really uplifting and it's a great message. And it's awesome to
Yeah.
hear my son be like, "Can we play Pink?" Like, yes, yes, we can.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Is there something that you've purchased in the last year that's under $100 that has made a difference in your life and in a positive way?
Yes, this is so nerdy. Okay. So there's this screwdriver that's a gyroscopic screwdriver. And because so like I'm trying to get things done in my house, pictures up and all sorts of stuff. And it's cordless. And you turn it when you turn it, it goes that way. And then you turn it right and it goes the other way. It's so
Ah,
handy. It's the best thing ever. Um, I know it's really nerdy and I love getting tools and things like that for gifts.
yeah.
Um,
If you can find it, I'd love if you could share the link so we can share that with everybody because
yeah,
this is first time a screwdriver has come
I
up.
know, right?
But that's important things though. They can make such a big difference in getting things done.
Exactly. And just like, with building furniture sometimes and all those things around the house or apartment,
Yeah.
the lifesaver.
Yes, totally agree. Because I think we always have problems with finding us even just a manual screwdriver. It always seems to be the thing that,
Right?
where, yeah.
And it's mine. So I keep it with where I know where it is with all the bits and everything. And so then nobody in the house touches it. Perfect.
I like it. I like it. Your own personal screwdriver.
Yeah.
Is there a good book that you've read recently or podcast that you listened to that you would recommend to the audience? It could be fiction or nonfiction.
Yeah. Well, so you know what? I actually just finished, it's an old one, and it's Good to Great: Why Some Companies Make the Leap and Others Don't, by Jim Collins. And I really liked some of the takeaways. Like for me, he has this bit on level 4 versus level 5 leaders, and maybe I wrote down quickly. Just a level 4 leader may run successful companies. They tend to do so in an egotistical, self-fulfilling manner. But on the other hand, level 5 leaders can run their companies in spirit of service. While one fails to prepare the company for success after his or her departure, the other takes great care to do so. And I really liked that. And he has another little bit in his book about being the right seat on the bus, or maybe not even having a seat on the bus, and making sure that you have your people in the right jobs in your company. Yeah. So I really liked that. Just so everybody knows, it is 20 years old. And so unfortunately, the companies that he is examining, the latest one is like 2000. But I think it's still applicable. It's so good from a business perspective. Have you read it?
Yeah, it's been a while. It's a classic. Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can't go wrong. I mean, I think that's a timeless book. And
yeah. I just wish I was like, I wish, he had his company profile from like 2000 to 2020 or something. Like, I wonder how it would change.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I wonder if, honestly, I don't know if he's still alive, but I wonder if he is thinking about doing that, because that might be a good exercise.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Okay. Well, good. Well, I know we're coming to the end of our time, and you are officially in our audience's Hype Squad. So what is one last piece of advice or inspiration you would leave with everybody?
I think, just to reiterate what I said before, communicate your growth plan. Tell your manager what you're looking for. If they don't know your expectations, they can't get you there. So if you don't know where you're going, you're not going to get there. You're going to be wandering around aimlessly.
Yeah. Very good. Great advice. Well, thank you. If everybody wants to reach out to you, can they? And if they can, where would be the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Probably LinkedIn Messenger is probably the best place to, I check that regularly. And yeah, I think that's a good place.
Okay. So do you know offhand, it's Kristine Middlemiss?
Yeah. So it's just Kristine. Oh, yeah. It's just Sorry, I had it written down. So it is the linkedin.com/in/Kristine Middlemiss. My full name, Kristine with a K. And you can find me there.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Kristine. I appreciate you spending time with us and giving us the advice you've given and your experiences. You've definitely provided quite a few things from a different perspective that we haven't really talked about before or thought about. So I really appreciate it. And yes, thank you so much for giving your time.
Thank you. I really enjoyed chatting with you, and I loved this opportunity. So thank you.
Yes. Well, I hope you have a good day, and I will chat with you soon.
You too. Cheers.
Okay. Bye-bye. Hi, everyone. This is Michelle again. If you enjoyed this conversation, hit subscribe so you don't miss out on our weekly episodes. And if you're really feeling it, please leave a review. We'd love to have your support. You can also subscribe to our weekly newsletter, where we share things we're excited about, things we found funny or inspiring, and must-read leadership videos and articles we came across that week. You can subscribe by going to www.thebosstrack.com/weeklyjoy. That's www.thebosstrack.com/weeklyjoy. Drop in your email and you'll get the very next one. Thanks for listening.